go. Welcome back to Christmas at Home, and you've finished block 1 and 2. So we're ready for 3 and 4. Now, last time we did not talk about, at the end she always says square to 9.5 inches. Now, when we put the blocks together, we made sure that each of our pieces was 3.5. So if you keep your 1/4 inch, there's no need to trim to 9.5. As you can see, we've got a lot of points. And if we start trimming, there's a good chance that we're going to lose our points. So we're being very careful to have our individual blocks, squares, at 3.5. And we're keeping that nice 1/4 inch. You've got your magic wand, and if you're pressing your seam open, you should be able to lay that on the seam, and your seam edges will be right even with. Or if you have pressed it to one side, put your line on the seam, and you can see that your fabric is right even with the edge. So if the individual units are not 3.5, go back and see where are we not getting our 1/4 inch as nice as we could. So that's the issue with trimming when we've got our 9.5 inches. We're making our blocks individually 3.5. When we sew them together, our blocks are going to be a nice 9.5 inch. Okay, so for cutting this month, our background, we're going to be cutting a strip 4.5 inches and subcutting that into 5-inch squares, 4.5, 5, 4.5 inch squares, and then we're cutting 2 4-inch strips, and we're subcutting that into 18 4-inch squares. And then we've got our gray trees, and that's just going to be 2 3.5-inch squares. Easy enough, that's our center. And then our red, we're cutting 2 4-inch squares, and then we'll be cutting those on the well, we're going to use that, as you can see, for our half square triangles, and then also in this combination unit where we've got half. And then we have here half square triangles, 4 inches. We need 4 of those. We're making 2 block 3s. And then our dots with a background of white, we're cutting 5 4.5-inch squares. Our green, 3.5, that's our nice center. And then our gray, we're cutting 4 inches for our half square triangles. Okay, on block number 3, it's half square triangles, very easy. Remember last week we talked about cutting our squares, using our magic wand to draw our stitching lines, and then trimming it to 3.5 inches. So block number 3, very easy to put together. When we get to block 4, you can see we've got half square triangles at the corner. Now, that is directional fabric. And if you don't want your people, some of them skating on their heads, and you want them all to face the same way, the trick there is to take half of them, and you're sewing your half, you're marking your lines one direction from the upper right to the lower left, and this one the opposite way, so that when you sew them and cut them apart, all of your people, you can get them standing up in your block, so they're all facing the same way. So anytime you have directional fabric, that's the the trick to get everyone going the direction you want. Then, so half square triangles, again, they're oversized, and we're gonna take our Tucker trimmer and we're gonna trim them to 3.5. Now, the next unit, I call it a combination unit. We've got quarter square, and then we've got a half square. Now, these again are oversized. Now, as you can see, on this particular block, on the top and the bottom, we have our white at the edge, and on the sides, we've got our dots. So, and the instructions are telling you to sew 10 in this direction, and then 10 this way. And on this, you're gonna have to just really pay attention as you're sewing. As you can see, they're opposite. You have a sort of a left and a right. And when you're making these blocks, you're taking your square and you're cutting it diagonally twice. And you want to do that because, see, here's your straight of grain. That's the edge of your block. As like when we're doing half square triangles, we just cut it once, corner to corner, and here you have your straight of grain on the corners. So the only thing you really have to do is, the pictures are very good in the book. So notice the pictures. Now, when I'm sewing these together, we have points. So I always start up here and sew this way. If you have a single hole throat plate, your fabric doesn't eat up. But watch out when you have your a wider plate. And it also helps to, sew with, well, they call them leaders or enders, and that keeps your thread from, so this one, I sew it from the top to the point. Then you're not going to lose your fabric into the sewing machine. Okay, then we've cut these red squares in half, and we're ready to put our combination unit together. So I take my red fabric and I just do a gentle finger press, and then I want that seam to hit right where I folded, and then sew it. And here you're going to have to be careful not, watch so the machine doesn't eat up your points. There's nothing you can do. Now, these I said are oversized. Now, if you didn't love your Tucker trimmer before, you're going to love it this week. So when you're trimming this, and we've got our Tucker trimmer, you want this up here, and you want to start this way. You've got your 45 in both directions, so you've got 2 places you can line that up. That seam and along there. And as you can see, there's very little to trim off, so you're going to have to be careful. You can't, your 1/4 inch has got to be right on and not over, because then otherwise, here, some of mine got to be pretty close, and maybe I didn't have a thread or not. But, so trim this side, and then when you flip it over, of course, that is going to be on the 3.5, and again, line up all of these. This is going to have been cut off and trim the other side. So it's not difficult. You probably just have to pay attention, and you'll have all of these beautiful blocks done and ready for next month. Thank you.